In the early years of the 11th century, the vast lands of Eastern Europe were shaped by the steady rise and fall of mighty kingdoms, each vying for power, control, and influence. At the heart of this ever-evolving tapestry stood the Grand Kingdom of Rus Kiev, a powerhouse of the east that stretched from the vast forests of the north to the fertile plains of the south. It was in this majestic setting that Anastasia was born, a princess destined to play a pivotal role in shaping the future of not only her homeland but also the Kingdom of Hungary. Anastasia was born in 1023, the daughter of Yaroslav the Wise, Grand Prince of Kiev, and Ingegerd of Sweden, a princess from a powerful Scandinavian lineage. Her birth was a moment of celebration not only for her family but also for the realm. Yaroslav was widely regarded as one of the greatest rulers of the Kievan Rus. His reign marked by a period of stability, intellectual flourishing, and military success. His empire, situated at the crossroads of Europe and Asia, was a hub for commerce and culture. And Anastasia's early life would be shaped by the grandiosity of this flourishing kingdom. Growing up in the royal court of Kiev, Anastasia was surrounded by the magnificence and intricacies of court life. The golden halls of the palace were adorned with the finest tapestries and treasures from across the continent, while scholars, poets, and philosophers filled the air with their wisdom and words. The young princess, though of noble blood, was no stranger to the complex and often tumultuous political environment of her family. Her father, Yaroslav, was a figure of immense power, but his reign was also marked by delicate negotiations with neighboring kingdoms, territorial disputes, and the constant need to maintain peace within his own court. Anastasia, as a princess of such a prestigious family, was exposed to the intricate web of diplomacy, governance, and the often harsh realities of power from an early age. The significance of her lineage. Anastasia's family was a beacon of power in Eastern Europe, and her lineage was something that carried weight in both the political and cultural spheres. Yaroslav's marriage to Ingegerd of Sweden, a woman of noble Scandinavian descent, added yet another layer of influence to the family. Ingegerd, who was also known as Anna of Novgorod, came from a distinguished Scandinavian background, and her union with Yaroslav was not only a matter of love but also a carefully considered political alliance. This union bolstered Kiev's relations with the northern kingdoms and solidified their position in the broader European political landscape. Anastasia's siblings also played crucial roles in the shaping of the region's history. Her brother, Vladimir II Monomac, would go on to become a key figure in the politics of Rus Kiev, while her sisters were married off to powerful kings and princes across Europe. Each of these marriages was part of a grand strategy by Yaroslav to secure alliances and strengthen the political standing of the Kievan Rus. Anastasia, though not as publicly celebrated as her siblings, was destined for her own role in this grand political chessboard. Her education and upbringing. From a young age, Anastasia was schooled in the arts of governance, diplomacy, and the intricacies of courtly life. Her education was not confined to the conventional roles of a noblewoman. Instead, she was tutored in matters of statecraft, military strategy, and the religious doctrines that underpinned the society in which she lived. The Kievan court was a melting pot of cultures, with Greek Orthodox Christianity shaping much of the royal family's practices. Anastasia's faith was instilled in her from an early age, and she was raised to embody the virtues of piety, grace, and strength. Her education was also deeply rooted in the practical aspects of being a ruler's consort. Anastasia was taught how to navigate the delicate balance between public duty and private life, as well as how to manage the intricate web of relationships that shaped the political sphere. Much of this training took place within the context of a royal family that was constantly engaged in diplomatic negotiations and alliances. And it was understood that a royal marriage was not simply a union of two people but a strategic alliance that could alter the course of history. The growing power of Kiev. By the time Anastasia reached her teenage years, the Kievan Rus was at the height of its power. Under the guidance of her father, Kiev had become a center of learning and culture. Yaroslav's reign was marked by the codification of laws known as the Ruskaya Pravda, the establishment of alliances with the Byzantine Empire, and the expansion of the realm's influence across Eastern Europe. Kiev's power was unmatched, and its rulers were seen as major players in the geopolitics of the region. However, The stability of the kingdom was not without its challenges. The empire was vast, and maintaining control over such a diverse and sprawling territory required constant attention. The strength of Kiev lay in its ability to forge alliances and maintain a delicate balance between internal peace and external threats. Yaroslav's political strategy was centered around cultivating strong diplomatic ties with neighboring states, particularly through marriage. This strategy would soon play a key role in Anastasia's own life, as her father's vision for a united Europe would soon intersect with the Kingdom of Hungary. The call of Hungary, a new alliance. By the time Anastasia came of age, her father, Yaroslav, had already forged several key alliances through his children's marriages. Her brother, Vladimir II Monomac, had married into the royal family of Poland, and her sister, Elisaveta, had married the King of Norway. But the time had come for Anastasia to enter into her own political marriage, one that would further solidify the power of the Kievan Rus. Hungary, under the leadership of King Bela I, was in a state of political flux. Bela's death in 1038 led to a power vacuum, and the throne was contested between Bela's sons and a rival faction led by the Byzantine-backed Peter Orsolo. This political instability in Hungary created an opportunity for Yaroslav to cement a crucial alliance through a marriage between his daughter, Anastasia, and the young prince András I. This marriage would serve to strengthen the ties between the two kingdoms, with Anastasia acting as both a political figurehead and a catalyst for peace. Anastasia's marriage to András I was not merely a union of two people, but rather a strategic decision that would have lasting consequences for both Hungary and the Kievan Rus. It was a marriage designed to stabilize Hungary's position in Eastern Europe and ensure the continued influence of the Kievan Rus in the region. For Anastasia, this would mean leaving behind the land of her birth, the glittering courts of Kiev, and traveling to a distant kingdom filled with unknowns. A princess in a foreign land. As the marriage negotiations between Kiev and Hungary progressed, Anastasia's fate was sealed. In the year 1042, she left behind the comfort and security of her homeland for the unfamiliar territory of Hungary, a land she had only heard about in diplomatic missives. This marked the beginning of a new chapter in her life, one that would require her to adapt to an entirely different world. The court of Hungary was vastly different from the cultured splendor of Kiev. The Hungarian court, though noble, was less established in terms of political and cultural sophistication. The people of Hungary, primarily Magyars, lived on the edge of both Europe and Asia, and their way of life was rugged and more warlike compared to the more cosmopolitan atmosphere of Kiev. Anastasia, a princess of refinement and grace, would soon find herself at the heart of a kingdom in flux, where political alliances were often sealed through force rather than diplomacy. But Anastasia's upbringing had prepared her for such challenges. The court of Kiev had taught her the importance of strategy, diplomacy, and the careful management of power. Her marriage to András I was not just a union of love, it was a chance for her to wield influence and play a critical role in shaping the future of her new kingdom. As the dust settled and Anastasia began her new life as queen consort of Hungary, she found herself standing at the crossroads of two powerful kingdoms, ready to bridge the gap between East and West, and ready to play her part in the unfolding drama of European history. As Anastasia embarked on her journey to Hungary, she carried with her not just the weight of her father's expectations, but also the hopes of her people and the intricate web of political alliances that stretched far beyond the borders of the Kievan Rus. Her marriage to András I was not merely a ceremonial act, it was a cornerstone in a grand diplomatic strategy designed to shape the future of both kingdoms. The young princess, though still in her early 20s, was now entrusted with the responsibility of uniting two powerful realms. But this union would not come easily, no royal marriage ever did. The long journey to Hungary. The journey from Kiev to Hungary was a long and arduous one. Anastasia, along with a retinue of attendants, traveled westward across the vast and untamed lands that lay between her homeland and the distant Hungarian kingdom. The route was fraught with challenges, hostile terrain, dangerous weather, and the constant threat of bandits. But for a princess of her stature, there were few choices other than to endure. Anastasia's heart was heavy with the weight of leaving behind the familiar comforts of Kiev, the lush, golden palaces along the Dnieper River, The bustling markets filled with merchants from across the known world, and the scholarly discussions that took place in the royal court. She had been groomed for this moment since birth, trained to be a diplomat, a queen, and a mother. Yet the reality of stepping into a new world was daunting. As they approached the borders of Hungary, Anastasia's thoughts turned to the man she was about to marry, András I. The prince she had met only in passing during diplomatic exchanges. The thought of him, a young man of noble blood, was both reassuring and unsettling. She knew little about his personality, his leadership, or his ambitions. What she did know was that he was a man of destiny. A man who would become the king of Hungary. A kingdom that stood on the edge of Europe, fiercely protective of its independence and culture. First impressions of Hungary. When Anastasia finally set foot in Hungary, she was greeted not with the extravagant fanfare she had expected, but with a more subdued welcome. The Hungarian court, while regal in its own right, lacked the sophistication and grandeur of Kiev. The nobles of Hungary were proud and stoic, their traditions rooted in a warrior society that had only recently been converted to Christianity. The influence of the Eastern Orthodox Church, to which Anastasia was accustomed, had yet to fully permeate Hungary, which was still firmly entrenched in its Catholic faith. The Hungarian landscape was different from the lush, fertile plains of Kiev. The land was rougher, with rolling hills and forests that stretched as far as the eye could see. The castles, while imposing, were built more for defense than for beauty. Anastasia's first impression was of a land constantly on the move, a kingdom that had fought hard for its survival and had not yet settled into the calm of prosperity that marked her homeland. She quickly learned that life in Hungary was not as polished or refined as it had been in Kiev. The court was less focused on art, philosophy, and learning and more concerned with matters of military strategy and territorial expansion. The people of Hungary, though kind and hospitable, were not as accustomed to the finer points of courtly diplomacy as the people of Kiev. The language barrier, too, proved to be an obstacle, as Anastasia did not speak Hungarian fluently. But despite the differences, Anastasia was determined to make the best of her new life. She quickly set about learning the customs of her new home, striving to fit into the Hungarian court and gain the respect of its nobles. Her intelligence, charm, and diplomatic training soon won her the favor of those who saw her as a potential stabilizing force in the kingdom. Anastasia's ability to navigate these early challenges, to adapt to the new customs while maintaining her own sense of identity, would prove to be one of her greatest strengths in the years to come. András I, the prince and future king. The first time Anastasia met András I face to face was a moment filled with both expectation and uncertainty. András, the youngest son of Bela I, had spent much of his early life in exile after his father's death. The political turmoil that followed Bela's passing had forced András to fight for his birthright. He was not yet the king, but he was well on his way to securing his place as Hungary's monarch. He had spent years building alliances, forging political and military connections, and preparing for the moment when he would be able to claim the throne. When Anastasia first laid eyes on him, she saw a young man of noble bearing, tall and confident, with the weight of destiny already resting upon his shoulders. András, in turn, was struck by the beauty and grace of his new bride. He had heard much about her noble lineage, her intelligence, and her diplomatic skills, but seeing her in person was something entirely different. Their first meeting was not one of great romantic gestures but rather a meeting of two rulers who had been bound together by political necessity. András, aware of the power his marriage to Anastasia could bring, sought to make her feel welcome in his kingdom. He respected her background and understood the significance of her lineage. In return, Anastasia saw in András a man of strength and ambition, a man who, despite his challenges, possessed the resolve to become a great king. As their marriage ceremony approached, Anastasia began to learn more about the complexities of András's struggle for the throne. Though he had long been a figurehead in Hungary, the true power had lain in the hands of his rivals, particularly Peter Orsoló, who had been placed on the throne with the support of the Byzantine Empire. It was clear to Anastasia that her marriage to András was not just a personal union but a political strategy. András needed her as much as she needed him. The role of Anastasia in Hungarian politics. From the outset, Anastasia understood her role in Hungary was to be one of subtle influence. Though she was now queen, Her power was not absolute. She would not sit on the throne beside András as an equal ruler. Instead, her role would be more behind the scenes, acting as a counselor, a mediator, and a trusted advisor. Her strength lay in her intelligence and her understanding of political machinations, skills honed in the court of Kiev. Anastasia's knowledge of the Byzantine Empire, with which she shared cultural and religious ties, also proved to be invaluable. She knew that Hungary's future depended on its ability to navigate the complex relationships with its neighbors, particularly the Byzantine Empire, which had long sought to influence the politics of Central and Eastern Europe. With her royal connections and diplomatic training, Anastasia became a key figure in securing Hungary's relationships with the Eastern powers. Her influence was also felt within the Hungarian court itself. Though her role was not as prominent as that of András, Anastasia quietly worked to win the loyalty of Hungary's powerful noble families. She understood that securing her position required the support of these men, who wielded significant influence in the kingdom. Her charm, intellect, and grace quickly made her a respected figure in Hungary. She became known not just as the wife of the king, but as a queen in her own right, one who would shape the future of the kingdom. As Anastasia settled into her new life in Hungary, she came to realize that her role in history was not just that of a wife or consort but as a political force in her own right. Her marriage to András I would mark the beginning of a new era for Hungary, one in which the influence of the Kievan Rus would extend far beyond the borders of her homeland. The challenges she faced in adapting to a new kingdom would ultimately lay the foundation for her legacy as one of the most important queens of her time. To fully understand the significance of Anastasia's marriage to András I and her eventual role in the politics of Hungary, it is essential to first explore the broader political context of the 11th century. Europe at this time was in a state of constant flux, with kingdoms rising and falling, and power struggles defining the very fabric of the continent. The political dynamics that would shape Anastasia's life and reign were complex and often unpredictable. The Kingdom of Rus Kiev, a power in the east. In the early 11th century, Rus Kiev was a powerful state, a flourishing center of trade, culture, and political influence in Eastern Europe. It had become a key player in the geopolitics of the region, and its influence extended from the Baltic Sea in the north to the Black Sea in the south. The Kievan Rus was firmly rooted in the Byzantine Orthodox Christian tradition, a legacy of its founding prince, Vladimir the Great, who had converted to Christianity in 988. His conversion had solidified the alliance between the Byzantine Empire and the Slavic people of the Rus, making Kiev an important ally in the region. Kiev, under the rule of Yaroslav the Wise, was at its zenith. Yaroslav's reign had been marked by territorial expansion, military success, and a cultural renaissance. He built the first legal code of the Kievan Rus, known as the Ruskaya Pravda, and he strengthened the city of Kiev into a thriving political, intellectual, and religious center. Yet, as powerful as Kiev was, it was also a kingdom surrounded by enemies. The eastern steppe was home to the Pechenegs and later the Cumans, fierce nomadic tribes that posed a constant threat to the security of the Rus. To the west lay the growing influence of the Polish kingdom, while to the south, the Byzantine Empire, despite its waning power, remained a formidable force. The political stability of Kiev, which had been fostered by Yaroslav's wise leadership, was fragile. As the ruler of this prosperous yet precarious kingdom, Yaroslav knew that his children's marriages would play a crucial role in securing his legacy. Anastasia, as one of his daughters, was part of this political strategy, and her marriage to András I of Hungary was not just a personal union but an essential part of the broader vision of Yaroslav's diplomatic maneuvering. The Kingdom of Hungary, a kingdom in transition. The Kingdom of Hungary in the early 11th century, while still a relatively young kingdom, had already witnessed considerable upheaval. It had been founded by the Arpad dynasty, but by the time Anastasia's marriage was arranged, the kingdom had entered a period of political instability. In 1038, King Bela I, a member of the Arpad dynasty, died, leaving the throne contested among his sons. The ensuing struggles for power led to a temporary collapse of the monarchy, with various factions vying for control. One of the main competitors for the throne was Peter Orsolo, who had been installed as King of Hungary by the Byzantine Empire. Peter's reign was marked by Byzantine influence, and his pro-Byzantine policies alienated many in Hungary, who were eager to assert their independence. The throne of Hungary was contested, with factions supporting either Peter Orsolò or András I, the youngest son of Bela I. The kingdom was divided, with rival factions battling for control. András I, exiled for much of his early life, returned to Hungary to stake his claim to the throne. His struggle for the crown was not just about regaining his father's legacy. It was about ensuring Hungary's future as an independent kingdom that could stand up to external threats. András was determined to free Hungary from the influence of the Byzantine Empire and restore the Arpad dynasty to its rightful place. The rise of Byzantium, an empire in decline. While the kingdoms of Rus, Kiev and Hungary were embroiled in their own internal struggles, the Byzantine Empire remained an ever-present force in Eastern Europe. At this time, the Byzantine Empire, though still powerful, was in decline. The Byzantine emperors had long held sway over much of the Balkans, the eastern Mediterranean, and parts of Italy. But their influence had begun to wane, particularly in the face of new challenges. In Hungary, the Byzantine Empire's support of Peter Orsolò was one of the primary factors behind the growing discontent with his rule. Many in Hungary, including András I, saw Peter as a puppet of the Byzantines, a monarch who had no true allegiance to the Hungarian people. This resentment was one of the driving forces behind András's return to Hungary and his eventual struggle to claim the throne. Anastasia, as a member of the Kievan Rus royal family, was closely connected to the Byzantine Empire through her mother, Ingegerd of Sweden, who was of Scandinavian and Byzantine descent. This connection to Byzantium made her an important figure in the ongoing struggle between East and West. Her marriage to András was a way to solidify ties between the Kievan Rus and Hungary while also offering a counterbalance to the Byzantine influence in the region. The role of religion in shaping politics. In the 11th century, religion played an integral role in the political affairs of European kingdoms. The Byzantine Orthodox Church had long been a source of influence in Eastern Europe, particularly in the lands of the Kievan Rus. The Church's spiritual and political authority was immense, shaping not only the daily lives of people but also the policies of kings and rulers. However, by the time Anastasia arrived in Hungary, the kingdom had been firmly aligned with the Catholic Church in Rome. The Great Schism of 1054, which formally divided Christianity into the Eastern Orthodox and Roman Catholic branches, had already occurred, and the rift between East and West was deepening. Hungary, under the influence of the Arpad dynasty, was a strong supporter of Catholicism, while the Kievan Rus remained tied to the Eastern Orthodox faith. This religious divide would play a significant role in Anastasia's life. As a devout Orthodox Christian, she had been raised with a deep connection to the Byzantine Orthodox faith. Her marriage to András I meant navigating the delicate tensions between the Orthodox and Catholic traditions. Anastasia's ability to serve as a bridge between these two worlds was not only a reflection of her personal diplomacy but also an important factor in the survival of her marriage and her influence within the Hungarian court. A changing Europe, shifting alliances and new realities. The 11th century was a period of immense change in Europe, with kingdoms expanding, new powers emerging, and alliances shifting like the tides. Anastasia's marriage to András I was not just a personal union but part of the larger dynamic of European geopolitics. The political, religious, and cultural forces that shaped her life were not confined to the borders of her homeland. She found herself at the center of a continent that was constantly redefining itself. The emerging power struggles, the tension between the East and the West, and the growing importance of religious identity all contributed to the complexity of Anastasia's role as Queen Consort of Hungary. While she was initially an outsider in the Hungarian court, her upbringing in the sophisticated political environment of Kiev and her connections to the Byzantine Empire would allow her to navigate this complex landscape with skill. As the story of Anastasia's life and her marriage to András I unfolds, it becomes clear that her influence would extend far beyond the personal and into the political sphere. The events of her early life and her deep understanding of the delicate balance between religion, politics, and diplomacy would soon come into play, shaping not just her own future but the future of Hungary as well. as the political currents of Europe swirled with uncertainty and power struggles. One of the most pivotal events in Anastasia's life was about to unfold: her marriage to András I of Hungary. A union of great political importance. This marriage would intertwine the fates of two great kingdoms, one in the east and one in the west, marking the beginning of a new chapter not just in Anastasia's life, but in the future of Hungary. The political necessity of marriage. Anastasia's marriage was not one based on romantic love or personal desire, but on the intricate web of diplomacy and strategic alliances that were necessary to secure peace and stability in an era defined by shifting borders and rivalries. At the heart of this union was Yaroslav the Wise, Anastasia's father, who saw the necessity of forging strong ties between his kingdom and Hungary to ensure the survival and strength of the Kievan Rus. In the early 1040s, the Kingdom of Hungary was in a state of flux. After the death of King Bela I in 1038, Hungary had been left vulnerable to political instability. Rival factions fought for control, and Peter Orsolò, a claimant to the throne with strong ties to the Byzantine Empire, had managed to seize the crown. Peter's reign was characterized by a heavy reliance on Byzantine influence, which alienated many of the Hungarian nobles. This period of instability created a perfect opening for Anastasia's marriage to András I, the rightful heir to the throne who had spent much of his life in exile. András I had returned to Hungary with one goal in mind: to reclaim his birthright. The son of King Bela I, András was part of the Arpad dynasty, and as a legitimate heir, he had the support of many Hungarians who resented Byzantine control. But in order to cement his claim to the throne, András needed a powerful political ally. Anastasia, with her royal bloodline and connections to the Byzantine Empire through her mother, Ingegerd of Sweden, was the perfect candidate. The marriage would strengthen András's position, offering not only the support of the Kievan Rus but also an opportunity to counterbalance the influence of the Byzantine Empire that had backed Peter Orsolò. For Anastasia, this marriage was a chance to solidify the position of her family and preserve the power of the Kievan Rus in the region. The negotiations and the union of two kingdoms. The negotiations for Anastasia's marriage were a delicate affair, as both Yaroslav the Wise and András I sought to ensure that their respective kingdoms would benefit from the union. Yaroslav, aware of the precarious situation in Hungary, sought a marriage that would not only secure his daughter's future but also ensure the political alignment of the Kievan Rus with Hungary. Meanwhile, András I saw the marriage as a strategic move to gain legitimacy and support for his claim to the Hungarian throne. The marriage proposal was thus not only an act of love or partnership but a diplomatic maneuver. Both sides understood that the success of this marriage would determine the future direction of Hungary, Kievan Rus, and the broader Eastern European political landscape. Anastasia, despite her age, understood the magnitude of the situation. Though she had no romantic attachment to András, she recognized the significance of this union for her family and her people. Her father, Yaroslav, trusted her to play a crucial role in the marriage negotiations. Anastasia's presence in Hungary would strengthen the ties between the two kingdoms and offer András the political support he needed to secure his throne. The Byzantine Empire, which had long exerted influence over Eastern Europe, would now face a new and powerful counterbalance in the form of the Kievan Rus. The marriage, a ceremony marked by power and prestige. The marriage ceremony itself was a grand affair, held at a time when Hungary was in the throes of a political struggle. The court of András I was a mix of warriors, nobles, and advisors, all watching closely as the union between the two kingdoms was formalized. Anastasia, draped in the finest robes and jewels, appeared not just as a princess but as a symbol of the political alliance that her marriage represented. The ceremony, while undoubtedly beautiful, was a somber reminder of the power dynamics at play. The Church, a key institution in both Hungary and Kiev, performed the union according to Christian rites, but the religious aspect of the ceremony was secondary to the political implications of the event. Anastasia's arrival in Hungary marked the beginning of a new era, one in which the two kingdoms, Hungary and Kievan Rus, would be forever linked through the bond of marriage. In Hungary, there was a sense of cautious optimism. The nobles, many of whom had supported András's bid for the throne, now saw the marriage as a step toward securing the future of their kingdom. The wedding was a public affirmation that András had the support of a powerful ally in the East. Anastasia, for her part, entered the Hungarian court not only as a new queen but as a political figure with significant influence. While her role as queen consort was largely ceremonial, she would play an integral part in the diplomacy that would follow. Anastasia's role in the court of Hungary. As Anastasia settled into her new role as queen consort, she faced the difficult task of adapting to the customs and political structures of Hungary. The court, though regal, was far different from the sophisticated culture of Kiev. The Hungarian nobility, though noble in their own right, were more focused on military affairs and territorial control than on cultural pursuits. This was a land still in the process of consolidating its power. A kingdom that had only recently embraced Christianity and was still learning the intricacies of courtly diplomacy. Anastasia's upbringing in Kiev had prepared her well for the role she now found herself in. The Kievan court was a place of learning, politics, and religion, and she had been raised with a deep understanding of the importance of diplomacy. She had seen her father, Yaroslav the Wise, navigate the complex relationships between the various European powers with finesse. It was this same skill that she now needed to employ in Hungary, where tensions between the nobility were high and the external pressures from the Byzantine Empire loomed large. Despite the differences in culture, Anastasia quickly became a respected figure in the Hungarian court. Her education, poise, and diplomatic skills made her a trusted advisor to her husband. She worked tirelessly behind the scenes, helping András I navigate the often treacherous waters of Hungarian politics. Her connections to the Byzantine Empire and her deep understanding of Eastern Orthodox Christianity also proved valuable in strengthening Hungary's ties to the East. Her influence over the political situation in Hungary grew steadily, and she soon became one of the key figures in the kingdom. Though András I was the king, it was clear that Anastasia was a force in her own right, helping to shape the future of Hungary and the broader political landscape of Eastern Europe. The challenges of union. But the union between Anastasia and András I was not without its challenges. The political dynamics in Hungary were constantly shifting, and the threat from Peter Orsolyo, who still held the support of the Byzantine Empire, was a looming shadow over their reign. Anastasia's marriage had been a blow to the Byzantine-backed faction, but the struggle for the throne was far from over. Anastasia's role as queen was tested time and again as she worked alongside her husband to consolidate their power. As the political landscape shifted, Anastasia proved herself not only as a queen consort but as a political strategist. She navigated the complex relationships within the Hungarian court, formed alliances with influential nobles, and worked tirelessly to ensure the survival of her family's power. While the early days of their marriage were marked by the challenges of settling into a foreign land, Anastasia soon found her footing. Her relationship with András I grew stronger, and the two rulers worked together to navigate the precarious political landscape. Though their union had begun as a political necessity, it was becoming increasingly clear that Anastasia's intelligence, diplomacy, and political acumen were essential to the success of their reign. Anastasia's journey to Hungary was not just a physical one but a deep plunge into a foreign world. A new reality that would challenge everything she knew. As she crossed the borders of the Kingdom of Hungary, Anastasia was stepping into a land full of uncertainties, but also opportunities. The Hungary she entered was a kingdom in transition, one where the old ways of paganism still held sway in some regions, while the Catholic faith spread its roots deeper into the lives of the people. The customs, the language, and the people were all unfamiliar. Anastasia, born and raised in the sophisticated and cultured court of Kiev, would have to navigate this new world carefully, knowing that her success as queen depended not just on her ability to adapt to the Hungarian court, but also on how effectively she could solidify her political position. First impressions. A kingdom of contrasts. Hungary, unlike the intellectual and artistic center of Kiev, was a kingdom shaped by its warrior culture. The nobility, though Christian, still carried the fierceness of their nomadic roots. Their values centered on strength and loyalty, not the cultured diplomacy Anastasia had known in Kiev. The castles were strongholds rather than palaces, and the people, though kind and hospitable, did not have the same cultural refinement of her homeland. As Anastasia arrived in Hungary, the first impression she had of the land was one of contrasts. The hills and forests, while beautiful, were much rougher and wilder than the gently rolling terrain of the Kievan Rus. The sprawling, fertile plains of the Dnieper River were replaced by rugged landscapes that tested the resilience of the people who lived there. Yet, beneath the harsh exterior, Anastasia found a kingdom brimming with potential, a kingdom on the cusp of greatness but still in the midst of internal struggles. The Hungarian court, though regal in its own right, was far from the glittering splendor of the Kievan court. It was a court shaped by military prowess and the strength of its people. Yet, there were signs of emerging culture and refinement, too, as Hungary was beginning to consolidate its position in Europe, shifting from the old ways of paganism and tribalism toward a more centralized Christian kingdom. The tensions between East and West, between the Catholic and Orthodox traditions, were felt at every level of the kingdom. Anastasia had been raised in a world of Byzantine Orthodoxy, and here, in Hungary, the kingdom had fully embraced Roman Catholicism. The Great Schism of 1054 had divided Christianity. But it was more than a theological divide, it was a political one as well. Anastasia's own faith was inextricably tied to the Eastern Orthodox Church, and now, as she prepared to enter a court that was firmly Catholic, she would have to reconcile the tensions between these two worlds. But Anastasia was no stranger to religious complexities. Raised in the heart of a kingdom that had strong ties to the Byzantine Empire, she was well aware of the deep cultural and religious divisions that defined the politics of the time. Adapting to the Hungarian court, Anastasia's transition into Hungarian life was a process that took time, but she was prepared for it. Her upbringing in Kiev had groomed her for diplomacy and negotiation. She had been taught how to adapt to changing circumstances and how to navigate the often complex relationships that existed within the court. This skill would serve her well in Hungary, where courtly life was dominated by rival factions, military concerns, and the constant tension between religious and political powers. Upon arriving at the Hungarian court, Anastasia was not immediately given the central role that she had been accustomed to in Kiev. The Hungarian nobles were wary of outsiders, particularly those who hailed from a foreign, Orthodox Christian kingdom, but Anastasia quickly proved that she was not merely the daughter of a great king, she was a woman of intelligence, grace, and political acumen. She began by quietly observing the court's proceedings, noting the relationships between the nobility and the influence of the church in matters of state. She also made a conscious effort to understand the Hungarian language, recognizing that it would be essential for her to speak directly to the people who would play a pivotal role in her political success. It was not enough for her to speak through translators or advisors. If she were to become an influential figure in Hungarian politics, she would have to speak the language of the people herself. Through her quiet diplomacy and careful observation, Anastasia won the respect of the Hungarian court. She made it clear that she was committed to understanding the complexities of her new home, even as she gently introduced elements of her own background and training. Her education in the Byzantine court had taught her the value of subtle influence, and she applied those lessons in Hungary, using her position as queen consort to build bridges between different factions and between East and West. The influence of András I, the king who would be king. While Anastasia worked behind the scenes to establish herself as a respected and influential figure in Hungary, András I had his own challenges to contend with. The young prince had returned to Hungary after years of exile, determined to reclaim the throne. His father, Bela I, had been king of Hungary, but after his death in 1038, the kingdom had descended into chaos. Various factions, including those loyal to Peter Orsollo, a claimant backed by the Byzantine Empire, fought for control of the throne. András's return to Hungary was a moment of both hope and tension. He had the support of many of the Hungarian nobles who longed for a monarch who would rid the kingdom of Byzantine influence. But his claim to the throne was not secure. Peter Orsollo's influence, backed by the might of the Byzantine Empire, was a powerful rival to András's own claims. The court was divided, and András would have to work hard to secure his position. Anastasia, despite her personal challenges, became an indispensable partner to her husband. As he navigated the shifting allegiances of the Hungarian court, she stood by his side, offering counsel and support. She recognized that Hungary's future depended on the success of András's bid for the throne. And so she threw herself into the political and diplomatic struggle to secure his reign. Her political acumen, honed in the courts of Kiev and influenced by her mother's connections to the Byzantine Empire, made her a formidable force in the Hungarian court. Anastasia's influence on András's reign was subtle but undeniable. Her ability to forge alliances, navigate courtly rivalries, and broker compromises between factions played a crucial role in András's eventual success. While András was the king, Anastasia was, in many ways, the quiet architect of his reign, shaping the political landscape behind the scenes and ensuring that the balance of power in Hungary shifted in their favor. The political landscape, allies and enemies. As Anastasia settled into her new life in Hungary, she became acutely aware of the political dynamics that defined the kingdom. Hungary was not just a kingdom in transition but also one that was constantly battling external threats. To the south, the Byzantine Empire was still a powerful force, though it was in decline. To the west lay the Holy Roman Empire, a distant but significant power that held sway over many of Hungary's neighbors. And to the east, the Pechenegs and other nomadic tribes presented a constant threat to Hungary's borders. In this context, Anastasia understood the importance of securing alliances. Hungary's position at the crossroads of Europe made it a key player in the regional power struggles of the time. András, as king, needed strong allies, both within Hungary and beyond, to ensure the stability of his reign. But alliances in this period were not merely diplomatic agreements, they were often sealed with marriage and bloodshed. And Anastasia's political skills were put to the test as she worked to secure these alliances for her husband. Anastasia's most important role in this period was her ability to balance Hungary's relationships with the East and the West. Her ties to the Byzantine Empire and her familiarity with Eastern Orthodox Christianity allowed her to serve as a bridge between the Eastern and Western worlds. She played a crucial role in maintaining peace with the Byzantine Empire, even as Hungary's political and religious ties to the West grew stronger. As queen, Anastasia was not just the wife of the king, she was a key player in the political game that would determine the future of Hungary. Her diplomatic efforts, her ability to navigate the complexities of Hungarian politics, and her quiet but undeniable influence on her husband would go on to shape the course of Hungary's history. The political struggles of András I had only just begun when Anastasia arrived in Hungary. Yet it was clear that the young prince had a deep resolve to reclaim his rightful place on the throne. His journey from exile to king was marked by both external challenges and internal court intrigues. But amidst the turbulence, Anastasia's role became ever more critical, not only as his queen consort but as a political partner capable of navigating the complex web of Hungarian politics. The struggle for the throne. Hungary's political landscape in the early 1040s was one of bitter division. After the death of King Bela I in 1038, Hungary had been thrown into a period of instability. His sons had split into rival factions, and the throne was contested by various claimants. Peter Orsolò, who had been placed on the throne with Byzantine backing, was opposed by András, who had spent years in exile, seeking the right moment to return to Hungary and reclaim his birthright. Peter's reign had favored Byzantine interests, and his reign alienated many of the powerful Magyar nobles who longed for a stronger, independent Hungary. András, though young, had been the rightful heir to the throne and had a loyal following of supporters among the Hungarian nobility. However, his return was not an easy one. The faction loyal to Peter Orsolò was strong, and the Byzantine Empire, still a formidable power in the region, backed Peter's claim. As András returned to Hungary, he faced an uphill battle, not just in terms of military strength, but in gaining the legitimacy necessary to secure the throne. Anastasia's role in this struggle was more than that of a queen consort. She had been raised in the court of Yaroslav the Wise, one of the most astute political minds of Eastern Europe, and she had learned the value of patience and diplomacy. Anastasia understood that this was not just a battle of swords but one of alliances. One where the support of key noble families and foreign powers would be essential to securing victory. And so, she worked tirelessly to support her husband in this battle for his birthright. Anastasia's diplomatic efforts, As András I began his campaign to regain the throne, Anastasia became a crucial advisor. Drawing on her experience in the complex political environment of Kiev, she knew that military victories alone would not be enough to secure the throne. András needed the support of the nobles who held sway over Hungary's territories. Hungary's political structure was decentralized, with powerful noble families controlling vast swaths of land. These nobles often played the deciding role in determining who would sit on the throne. Anastasia, aware of her unique position as the daughter of Yaroslav the Wise, used her connections to secure important alliances within Hungary. Her marriage to András had already solidified a political connection to the Kievan Rus. But Anastasia knew that she needed to expand this network. The key to Hungary's future lay in the loyalty of the Hungarian nobility and the ability to build a strong coalition within the kingdom. In a series of quiet meetings with influential nobles, Anastasia used her charm, intelligence, and political savvy to broker deals and offer assurances of support. Her calm diplomacy and understanding of the delicate political balances helped to win over many nobles who might otherwise have sided with Peter Orsollo. But her efforts were not limited to Hungary alone. Anastasia also worked behind the scenes to secure foreign alliances, particularly with her native Kiev, whose strategic importance in the region was undeniable. Though much of this diplomacy took place in private, it was Anastasia's influence that helped to lay the groundwork for András's eventual success. As his queen, she served not only as his political partner but also as a calming and steadying influence on a man burdened with the heavy responsibility of leading a divided kingdom. The military campaigns, András's reclamation of power. While diplomacy played a key role in securing András's reign, the battle for the throne was ultimately decided on the battlefield. After months of political maneuvering, András launched a military campaign to displace Peter Orsollo. The Battle of Menfo in 1044 was the decisive confrontation, where András and his supporters defeated Peter's forces. The victory was hard-earned, with heavy casualties on both sides, but it marked the end of Peter's reign. Anastasia, though not directly involved in the military conflict, played an essential role in the aftermath of the battle. She was deeply involved in the rehabilitation of the kingdom in the wake of the chaos. Her diplomatic acumen was instrumental in ensuring that András's victory was not only military but political. While András fought to secure his position, Anastasia worked to consolidate power and establish legitimacy within the kingdom. Her quiet but firm presence in the court helped to unify the nobles behind András, making it clear that Hungary's future lay in his hands. By securing the loyalty of key factions, she ensured that the political structure of the kingdom could withstand the challenges that lay ahead. The establishment of András I's rule, with Peter Orsollo defeated and the throne secured, András I officially became King of Hungary in 1046. His rule, however, was far from secure. Hungary was a kingdom divided, not just by factions loyal to Peter Orsollo, but also by long-standing rivalries among the nobility. The kingdom had suffered under years of instability, and András faced the monumental task of rebuilding it. But András was not alone. He had Anastasia by his side, her diplomacy, her knowledge of the Byzantine and Kievan political landscapes, and her deep understanding of how to navigate the intricate court politics made her an invaluable partner in the early days of his reign. While András focused on securing the borders and stabilizing the kingdom, Anastasia turned her attention to the internal structure of the court. One of her first acts as queen was to help establish a series of laws aimed at strengthening the power of the monarchy and curbing the influence of rebellious nobles. These laws were not only practical but symbolic, a sign that András's reign would bring stability to Hungary. They were crafted with the help of Anastasia's advisors, drawing on her experience of the legal and political systems of the Kievan Rus. While András ruled with strength and military might, Anastasia ruled with wisdom and diplomacy. Challenges to their rule, religious tensions. Though András I had established his rule, his reign was not free of challenges. One of the most pressing issues he faced was the religious divide that existed between the Catholic Church, which had been firmly established in Hungary, and the Eastern Orthodox Church, with which Anastasia remained connected through her roots in Kiev. Anastasia's position in Hungary as an Orthodox Christian in a predominantly Catholic kingdom presented a unique set of challenges. The Great Schism of 1054 had divided the Christian world into two camps, and the tensions between the two factions were palpable. Anastasia's efforts to bridge this divide and maintain cordial relations between the Orthodox and Catholic communities became a cornerstone of her role as queen consort. Her knowledge of the Byzantine Empire and her family's deep connections to the Eastern Orthodox Church allowed her to help her husband navigate these religious tensions. She encouraged András to build diplomatic relations with the Byzantine Empire, recognizing that such an alliance would strengthen Hungary's position in the region and counterbalance the growing influence of the Holy Roman Empire. Through her efforts, Anastasia became not just a queen consort, but a political and religious figure of significance. Her ability to balance Hungary's Catholic identity with her own Orthodox background was one of her greatest achievements during the early years of András's reign. A partnership forged in struggle. As András I's reign began to stabilize, it became clear that the partnership between him and Anastasia was not just one of convenience or obligation but one built on mutual respect and shared ambition. Together, they had faced down internal strife, foreign opposition, and religious division. While András was the king, it was Anastasia who provided the steady hand of diplomacy that ensured their success. Their relationship, though born of political necessity, grew into one of genuine collaboration. Anastasia's strength, intelligence, and calm diplomacy complemented András's military prowess and political ambition. Together, they were able to lay the foundation for a strong and unified Hungary, one that would endure for generations to come. As András I solidified his rule over Hungary, the kingdom entered a new phase of stability, one that required not only military prowess but the delicate balance of religion, diplomacy, and political strategy. For Anastasia, the queen consort, this period became a time of both challenge and opportunity. With Hungary now firmly under András's control, she could turn her attention to navigating the complex relationship between the Hungarian court and the wider world, especially as her own Eastern Orthodox faith stood in contrast to the Catholic establishment in Hungary. The world of 11th century Europe was a mosaic of shifting allegiances, religious disputes, and geopolitical interests. Hungary, strategically located at the crossroads of Western and Eastern Europe, found itself at the intersection of two major religious and political spheres, the Roman Catholic Church to the west and the Eastern Orthodox Church to the east. Anastasia's royal birth in Kievan Rus, a powerful Eastern Orthodox state, made her intimately familiar with the cultural and religious tensions between the two branches of Christianity. The challenges of her position as queen consort, as well as the political landscape she faced, were deeply intertwined with the kingdom's growing religious divide. The Catholic and Orthodox tensions. One of the most significant challenges Anastasia encountered was the religious divide between the Eastern Orthodox Church and the Catholic Church, a divide that had been deepening since the Great Schism of 1054. Hungary had long been a Catholic kingdom, with strong ties to the Holy Roman Empire and the Vatican. The people of Hungary had embraced the Latin Christian tradition, and the clergy wielded significant influence in matters of state. In contrast, Anastasia's upbringing in Kievan Rus had exposed her to the spiritual and political world of the Eastern Orthodox Church. The Kievan Rus, closely aligned with the Byzantine Empire, had been an Orthodox stronghold since the reign of Vladimir the Great, who had embraced Christianity from Constantinople in the 10th century. This deep connection to the Byzantine Empire, and by extension the Eastern Orthodox faith, shaped much of Anastasia's identity. As queen consort, Anastasia's role in Hungary was unique. She was both a symbol of political unity, binding Hungary to the east, and a reminder of the tensions that existed between the Eastern and Western Christian traditions. Her marriage to András I was, in many ways, a union between these two worlds. András, as king, was a devout Catholic, loyal to the Pope and the Latin Church. Yet his wife, though supportive of his reign, was loyal to her Eastern Orthodox roots, a fact that would inevitably play a significant role in the couple's political and religious dealings. Anastasia's role in religious diplomacy. Despite the challenges posed by her Orthodox faith, Anastasia played a vital role in diplomatic and religious matters. Her marriage to András was not only a personal one but also a diplomatic tool that could be wielded to strengthen Hungary's position in the region. Anastasia understood that the future of Hungary depended on maintaining both its independence and the balance of power between the great religious and political factions of Europe. To bridge the divide between the Orthodox and Catholic churches, Anastasia became a symbol of tolerance and diplomacy. She worked tirelessly to maintain good relations with the Byzantine Empire, which still held significant sway over Eastern Europe. As a member of the Kievan Rus royal family, she maintained close ties to the Byzantine court and sought to ensure that Hungary remained neutral in the ongoing religious conflict between the East and the West. Her diplomatic efforts were critical in preserving Hungary's sovereignty, at a time when the influence of the Byzantine Empire was in decline. Anastasia's relationship with Constantinople allowed Hungary to tap into an important network of allies in the East. This connection also helped Hungary secure favorable trade relations, military alliances, and cultural exchanges with the Eastern powers. While András concentrated on military and political concerns, Anastasia's role was to manage the delicate balance between the two religious worlds that defined Hungary's external relations. Hungary's growing influence in Europe. As the religious divide continued to play a pivotal role in Hungary's international relations, the political and economic landscape of the kingdom was also changing. András I's reign was marked by a growing Hungarian identity, one that sought to distance the kingdom from the dominance of the Byzantine Empire and the Holy Roman Empire. This sense of national pride was rooted in the kingdom's efforts to preserve its independence and to carve out its own place in the European power structure. András, with Anastasia's support, worked to solidify Hungary's position in Europe by forming strategic alliances with neighboring kingdoms. He sought to make Hungary a dominant force in Central Europe, and to do so, he needed a solid foundation of both internal stability and external diplomatic strength. Anastasia's involvement in Hungary's external diplomacy became increasingly important. She acted as an intermediary between Hungary and neighboring kingdoms, particularly in the realms of trade, military alliances, and religious cooperation. Her knowledge of Byzantine political practices and her diplomatic experience allowed her to play a significant role in shaping Hungary's foreign policy. Her influence also extended to the kingdom's religious development. Anastasia played a part in the promotion of Christianization in Hungary's borderlands and among its subject peoples. By encouraging religious tolerance and understanding, she helped to lay the groundwork for a more inclusive Hungarian society that could unite the various ethnic and cultural groups within the kingdom under a shared Christian identity. A queen with her own influence. Although Anastasia's role was primarily political, her religious background, education, and family ties made her one of the most influential women in Europe during the 11th century. She was a queen consort, but her position in Hungary was unique. She was not merely a passive figure by her husband's side, she was an active participant in the kingdom's political and religious life. Her personal devotion to Eastern Orthodoxy did not undermine her loyalty to her husband or her commitment to Hungary's future. Instead, it gave her a unique perspective on the challenges the kingdom faced in maintaining its identity while navigating the shifting political and religious allegiances of 11th-century Europe. Anastasia's diplomatic skills helped her maintain Hungary's relationship with the Eastern Orthodox world, while her political acumen ensured that Hungary would not be overrun by foreign influence. In a time when the balance of power between East and West was fragile, Anastasia became a symbol of the bridge between two worlds, one that balanced the old ways of the East with the growing power of the West. The role of the Church in Hungary's future. In the midst of the religious divide, András and Anastasia were faced with the challenge of positioning Hungary within a broader European religious framework. Despite Hungary's strong ties to the Catholic Church, it was clear that Anastasia's Orthodox heritage could not be ignored. However, the religious tensions between the two factions were not insurmountable. The marriage between András and Anastasia, while deeply rooted in political necessity, had the power to shape Hungary's future as a kingdom that could balance the influences of both the Catholic and Orthodox traditions. Anastasia's efforts to mediate between the two traditions were critical in preserving Hungary's role as an independent kingdom. She played a pivotal role in fostering relations between Hungary and the Byzantine Empire, while ensuring that her husband's loyalty to the papal authority in Rome remained intact. She did not seek to undermine the Catholic faith in Hungary but instead worked toward building a strong, independent religious identity for the kingdom that respected both the Catholic and Orthodox traditions. As Hungary continued to grow in power, Anastasia's religious influence grew alongside it. Her efforts to keep Hungary in good standing with both the Catholic and Orthodox churches helped to ensure the kingdom's stability during a time when religious conflicts could have easily torn it apart. Conclusion. Anastasia's lasting legacy. Anastasia's role in Hungary's religious and political development cannot be understated. Through her diplomatic skill, religious tolerance, and unwavering support of her husband, she helped lay the foundation for a unified and independent Hungary. Her ability to bridge the gap between the East and the West made her one of the most important figures in 11th-century European politics. Her legacy as a queen consort who navigated the religious and political complexities of her time continues to resonate in the history of Hungary. As the Byzantine Empire weakened and Catholicism firmly established itself in the West, Anastasia's efforts to maintain a balance between both worlds ensured Hungary's future as a powerful and independent kingdom in Europe. As the years passed in Hungary, Anastasia's role as queen consort evolved from that of a ceremonial figure to a powerful and influential force in the court. Her marriage to András I had initially been a political necessity, a union designed to solidify Hungary's position in the Eastern European landscape. But as time went on, Anastasia proved herself to be more than just a royal wife. She was a key figure in the political and diplomatic spheres of Hungary. A woman whose deep knowledge of foreign politics, diplomacy, and religious matters shaped the course of the kingdom. For Anastasia, the struggle to navigate Hungary's political landscape was intimately tied to her upbringing in Kievan Rus. She was the daughter of Yaroslav the Wise, one of the most respected rulers of the Kievan Rus, and her life in the royal court of Kiev had shaped her understanding of power, diplomacy, and governance. She had grown up amidst the complex interplay of alliances, rivalries, and political maneuvering that defined the medieval world. Now, as Queen of Hungary, Anastasia used the skills and knowledge she had acquired in Kiev to influence her husband's rule and ensure that Hungary remained secure in a region where power was often fluid and volatile. Though Hungary and Kievan Rus were geographically separated, they were bound by shared interests, particularly in their relations with the Byzantine Empire. For Anastasia, maintaining strong ties with her homeland was a priority, as these connections could provide Hungary with vital political and military support. Yet, as queen consort in a Catholic kingdom, Anastasia faced the challenge of balancing her loyalty to the Eastern Orthodox faith with the needs of her husband's Catholic reign. The complexity of her position only deepened as Hungary's political struggles intensified, and her ability to act as a mediator between East and West became all the more important. The role of Kiev's political influence. Anastasia's deep connection to Kievan Rus was not just a matter of personal loyalty but of political strategy. The Kievan Rus, despite its challenges and shifting borders, remained an influential kingdom in the region. The relationship between Hungary and Kiev was of great importance, and Anastasia worked tirelessly to maintain and strengthen these ties. In this, she served as a bridge between two worlds, Hungary, firmly aligned with Rome, and the Kievan Rus, where the Eastern Orthodox Church held sway. Kiev, under Yaroslav the Wise, had been a central figure in the geopolitical chessboard of Eastern Europe. Yaroslav had been known for his diplomatic acumen, securing alliances through strategic marriages, trade agreements, and military alliances. Anastasia had been raised in this environment, where politics and diplomacy were as much a part of everyday life as the religious and cultural customs that defined the kingdom. Her father's reign had secured Kiev's place in Europe, and Anastasia's marriage to András I was seen as part of a broader strategy to ensure that the Kievan Rus could maintain its influence over the region. As Queen of Hungary, Anastasia knew that the kingdom's future depended on its ability to navigate the shifting allegiances of Eastern Europe. The Byzantine Empire, though in decline, still held significant power, and Anastasia's ties to Constantinople remained strong. Through her, Hungary was able to maintain diplomatic relations with both the Orthodox world of the East and the Catholic world of the West. This was no easy task. Religious tensions between the two factions were high, and Hungary's position as a Catholic kingdom complicated the relationships between the two religious spheres. Yet Anastasia's diplomatic skills and her understanding of the complexities of the Eastern Orthodox faith allowed her to act as a mediator between East and West, securing alliances through diplomacy. One of Anastasia's most significant roles in Hungary was that of a diplomat. Her experience in Kiev's court had taught her the value of strategic alliances, and she applied these lessons to her own work in Hungary. She understood that Hungary's survival depended not just on military strength but on its ability to forge strong political alliances with neighboring kingdoms and powerful empires. Anastasia's political maneuvering helped Hungary secure key alliances with the Byzantine Empire, Poland, and the Rus. These alliances were crucial in ensuring Hungary's security and independence, particularly in the face of ongoing threats from the nomadic Pechenegs and Cumans who roamed the eastern steppes. While András I focused on military campaigns to secure Hungary's borders, Anastasia worked behind the scenes to negotiate alliances and bolster Hungary's position in the region. Her role was particularly important in the Byzantine Empire, where her connections through her family and her Eastern Orthodox faith made her a respected figure. Anastasia worked tirelessly to ensure that Hungary and the Byzantine Empire remained on good terms, particularly as tensions between the Catholic and Orthodox factions continued to rise. She was able to maintain a delicate balance, using her position as queen consort to ensure that Hungary's relationship with Constantinople remained strong. Even as Hungary's ties to the Catholic Church in Rome deepened, Anastasia's political influence within the Hungarian court. At court, Anastasia's influence grew steadily. She was not merely the wife of the king. She was a key political advisor and a trusted figure in her own right. The Hungarian nobility, although initially wary of her foreign background, came to respect her for her wisdom and diplomatic skills. Anastasia's ability to navigate the treacherous waters of Hungarian court politics was vital to András's reign. Hungary's nobility, with their often competing interests, posed a challenge to András's rule. Yet Anastasia, with her calm demeanor and political acumen, was able to help her husband secure the loyalty of key nobles. Anastasia's influence was especially important in the early years of András I's reign. Hungary's stability had been shaken by years of conflict, and the kingdom needed to heal both politically and economically. The nobility, often divided and distrustful of central authority, required careful management. Anastasia's diplomatic skills were crucial in securing the loyalty of Hungary's leading families. She was able to convince many powerful nobles to pledge their allegiance to András, ensuring that Hungary's political structure remained intact. Anastasia also played a significant role in the religious life of the court. Though she remained loyal to the Eastern Orthodox Church, she understood the importance of maintaining good relations with the Catholic clergy. The Catholic Church held significant power in Hungary, and the relationship between the Hungarian monarchy and the papacy was critical to securing Hungary's political future. Anastasia worked with her husband to ensure that Hungary remained firmly within the Catholic sphere, all while maintaining the delicate balance of respecting the Eastern Orthodox faith that she held dear. Her legacy as a queen consort. Anastasia's political influence was not only felt during her lifetime but also passed down through the generations. Her diplomatic efforts helped shape Hungary's relationships with its neighbors, and her political insight left a lasting mark on the kingdom. In particular, Anastasia's ability to navigate Hungary's religious and political complexities ensured the kingdom's independence and prosperity during András's reign. She was more than a queen consort, she was a political architect who helped shape the future of Hungary. Her legacy was also marked by the way she bridged the gap between the Eastern Orthodox and Catholic worlds. Her role as a queen consort, while focused on Hungary's internal stability, was also deeply influenced by her connections to Kiev and the broader Orthodox world. Anastasia's ability to mediate between these two religious traditions helped Hungary avoid the religious conflicts that had torn other kingdoms apart. She was a queen who used her intelligence, diplomatic skills, and connections to ensure Hungary's place in the ever-shifting landscape of 11th-century Europe. In the end, Anastasia's influence was not just about her ability to shape her husband's reign. It was about her vision for Hungary's future, a vision that saw the kingdom as a strong and independent power in the heart of Europe. capable of navigating the complexities of religious and political alliances. Through her marriage to András I, Anastasia became a central figure in the history of Hungary, a queen whose legacy would resonate long after her death. Despite the victories that András I and Anastasia had secured together, Hungary's political landscape was far from stable. The reign of Peter Orsolyo, supported by the Byzantine Empire, had left deep scars in the kingdom, and the remnants of his rule still lingered, as András I began to consolidate his power after Peter's defeat. New challenges arose, particularly from the lingering forces loyal to Peter's cause. The struggle for the throne would not end with the victory at Menfo, rather. It marked the beginning of a prolonged period of tension and conflict within the Hungarian court and the broader European arena. Peter Orsolyo's return. Peter Orsolyo, who had been ousted from the throne in 1044 after his defeat in the Battle of Menfo, did not go quietly into exile. Supported by the Byzantine Emperor and various factions within Hungary who resented András I's rule, Peter plotted his return. His brief but pivotal reign had been marked by an alliance with the Byzantine Empire, which had provided him with both military and political support. In his exile, Peter was far from powerless. His ties to Constantinople remained strong, and he continued to be seen by some as a legitimate claimant to the Hungarian throne. For Anastasia, Peter's return posed a personal and political challenge. Not only did it mean the potential return of a rival to the throne that her husband had fought so hard to secure, but it also represented a deeper clash of interests between the Byzantine Empire and Hungary. The conflict was not only one of succession, but also of religious and political affiliation. Peter, a staunch proponent of the Byzantine-backed orthodoxy, represented a direct challenge to András I's more Catholic-leaning policies and the legitimacy of Hungary's alliance with the Holy Roman Empire. For Anastasia, the situation was fraught with complications. As an Eastern Orthodox Christian, she had long harbored strong ties to the Byzantine Empire, where her family had roots. Her loyalty to her heritage was undeniable, and her role as a mediator between the Eastern Orthodox world and the Catholic Kingdom of Hungary made her a unique figure in this struggle. But as the wife of András I, her duty lay with him and the stability of his reign. The return of Peter Orsolyo posed a serious threat to Hungary's future, and Anastasia found herself torn between loyalty to her heritage and loyalty to her husband and his kingdom. Factions within Hungary. The division within Hungary was not merely a matter of competing monarchs. It was a reflection of the deeper rifts that existed within the kingdom. The Hungarian nobility had long been divided between those who supported Peter Orsolyo's Byzantine-backed rule and those who sided with András I, who represented a more independent, Catholic Hungary. Even after András's victory over Peter in 1044, these factions remained deeply entrenched, with many nobles viewing the king's rule as illegitimate or too heavily influenced by foreign powers. Anastasia's influence in this delicate situation was pivotal. Her diplomatic skill was once again put to the test as she worked behind the scenes to shore up support for her husband. She knew that the nobility, as well as external powers like the Byzantine Empire, needed to be carefully managed. Peter Orsolyo's support from Constantinople was a significant factor in the political dynamics. But Anastasia's deep ties to the Byzantine world allowed her to navigate the complex relationship between Hungary and its eastern neighbor. Though Hungary was growing increasingly aligned with the Catholic Church, Anastasia knew that Hungary's future could not be determined by the Catholic world alone. Anastasia's diplomacy, balancing East and West. As András I's reign progressed, Anastasia worked tirelessly to maintain Hungary's political independence while managing the tensions between East and West. Her role as a queen consort and mediator placed her in a unique position, as she was the one who could speak directly to both the Eastern Orthodox powers and the Catholic nobility. Her background in Kievan Rus, with its long-standing relationship with the Byzantine Empire, meant she was deeply familiar with the Byzantine mindset and political realities. Anastasia understood the importance of diplomacy and the strategic alliances that were necessary to Hungary's survival. She also understood the necessity of maintaining a delicate balance between the two worlds: Hungary's growing alignment with Rome and the lingering influence of the Orthodox Church to the east. Her efforts to maintain this balance were not just political, they were deeply personal. She was acutely aware that Hungary's future hinged on András's ability to consolidate power. She saw her role not just as a queen, but as a political strategist who could influence the course of Hungary's history. Anastasia's ability to maneuver between the Catholic and Orthodox factions, to ensure Hungary remained on solid ground politically and diplomatically, was critical to András's rule. The return of Peter Orsolò and the final struggle. Despite Anastasia's efforts, Peter Orsolò's return was inevitable. Supported by a faction of Hungarian nobles and backed by Byzantine influence, Peter returned to Hungary in 1046. His presence reignited the factional divisions within the Hungarian nobility, and his claim to the throne was seen as a direct challenge to András's rule. The struggle for Hungary was no longer simply a matter of military might but also a contest for political legitimacy. The conflict reached its climax with a dramatic showdown in 1046. When Peter Orsolò's forces clashed with those loyal to András I. In this decisive battle, András triumphed once again, decisively defeating Peter's supporters. The victory solidified András's control over Hungary and marked the end of Peter's claim to the throne. Peter Orsolò was captured and, following a brief period of imprisonment, was ultimately executed. For Anastasia, this victory was bittersweet. While it secured her husband's reign and the future of Hungary, it also marked the end of a long-standing connection to the Byzantine Empire. Anastasia, though supportive of her husband's rule, found the execution of Peter, a man who had once been her family's ally, painful. Yet, in the political game of the time, this was the price of maintaining control. Anastasia had helped ensure Hungary's survival, but at the cost of her own personal ties to the Byzantine world. Aftermath and consolidation of power. With Peter Orsolò's death, Hungary entered a new era. The political divisions that had plagued the kingdom for so long began to subside. András I, now firmly in control of the throne, turned his attention to stabilizing the kingdom and consolidating his power. His reign, though initially marked by struggles and external threats, had begun to stabilize, and Hungary began to emerge as a strong, independent kingdom in the heart of Europe. For Anastasia, the consolidation of power was both a victory and a challenge. She had played a crucial role in securing Hungary's political future. But her role was far from over. As queen consort, she worked alongside András to ensure the stability of the kingdom, using her diplomatic skills to maintain relationships with neighboring kingdoms and to manage the internal affairs of Hungary. Her influence, once seen as peripheral, was now a central force in the political life of the kingdom. András's victory over Peter Orsolò and his subsequent consolidation of power marked a turning point for Hungary. But it was also a turning point for Anastasia. No longer just a queen consort, she had become a queen in her own right, a woman who had helped steer Hungary through one of its most turbulent periods and had secured its place in the future. After years of struggle, both external and internal, Hungary finally entered a period of relative peace under the reign of András I. The conflict with Peter Orsolò had come to an end, and András's position as king was solidified. The chaotic political landscape that had once plagued Hungary gave way to a more stable, prosperous era. For Anastasia, the queen consort, this time brought both triumph and challenge, as she and her husband worked to secure Hungary's future while navigating the complex currents of power, religion, and diplomacy. The triumph of stability. András I's reign, following his victory over Peter Orsolò, was marked by the establishment of a more centralized form of governance. For the first time in years, Hungary was no longer fractured by internal disputes or the competing factions of the nobility. András I, once a claimant to the throne, was now firmly in control. The period of his rule from 1046 to 1060 would be one of stabilization and growth, both politically and economically. Anastasia, though a queen consort, was much more than just a ceremonial figure during this time. She had proven herself to be a sharp political strategist and a trusted advisor. Her unique background as the daughter of Yaroslav the Wise from Kievan Rus had prepared her for the intricacies of diplomacy. And her understanding of both Eastern Orthodox and Catholic traditions gave her an insight into Hungary's delicate position between the two worlds. Her political influence was felt throughout the court, where she had established herself as a key figure in the shaping of Hungary's internal policies and foreign relations. Hungary, under András I, began to thrive as a kingdom. The long-standing threats from Pechenegs and Cumans, who had raided Hungary's borders for years, were quelled. András led a series of military campaigns that pushed back these nomadic forces, restoring order to Hungary's borders. His victories, while not without cost, ensured the survival of Hungary as a sovereign state. In this period of military success, Anastasia's diplomatic role became even more crucial. She understood the importance of maintaining peaceful relations with Hungary's neighbors, especially the Byzantine Empire, Poland, and the Holy Roman Empire. While András led Hungary's military campaigns, Anastasia worked tirelessly behind the scenes, negotiating alliances and ensuring that Hungary's position in Europe remained secure. Strengthening Hungary's borders. One of András I's main objectives after consolidating power was to secure Hungary's borders against external threats. The Pechenegs, a Turkic nomadic group, had long posed a threat to Hungary's eastern frontiers. For years, they had launched raids, sacking villages and towns along the borders, and threatening the stability of the kingdom. András, in his early years as king, had to deal with these external pressures while also trying to stabilize the kingdom internally. Through a series of military campaigns, András and his forces pushed the Pechenegs back and secured Hungary's borders. The campaigns, though costly, were successful, and by the mid-1050s, Hungary's borders were largely secure. Anastasia, always an astute diplomat, helped secure the kingdom's military success by establishing crucial alliances with the Byzantine Empire, Poland, and even the Holy Roman Empire. She understood that Hungary's survival did not rest on military prowess alone but on the ability to navigate the shifting alliances and political landscapes of the time. The success of András's military campaigns provided Hungary with a newfound sense of stability. The kingdom's economic growth surged. As the threat of external invasion diminished, András worked to rebuild Hungary's cities, fortifying towns that had previously been vulnerable to raids. Under his rule, Hungary's infrastructure grew stronger, and trade routes, once disrupted by frequent invasions, flourished once again. Anastasia's role in this transformation cannot be overstated. While András was focused on military conquests and fortifications, Anastasia's diplomacy ensured that Hungary's neighbors remained neutral or even allied. She skillfully navigated the complexities of European politics, ensuring Hungary was neither isolated nor overly reliant on any single power. She helped craft Hungary's foreign policy, a policy that emphasized the kingdom's independence and the security of its borders. A flourishing court, culture and learning in Hungary. With the kingdom secure, András I and Anastasia turned their attention to Hungary's cultural and intellectual development. Anastasia, with her own background in education and intellectual pursuits, encouraged the flourishing of culture in Hungary. During the early years of András's reign, Hungary was still a kingdom in transition. Though deeply Christian, it had yet to fully embrace the cultural and intellectual advancements of Western Europe. Anastasia, drawing on the lessons of Kiev and the Byzantine Empire, worked to promote the arts and education within Hungary. She patronized scholars, artists, and theologians, encouraging the establishment of schools and libraries. Her efforts helped Hungary become more integrated into the intellectual currents of medieval Europe. By bringing scholars from both the West and the East to Hungary, she ensured that the kingdom would benefit from the knowledge and ideas of both worlds. This cultural exchange enriched Hungary's intellectual life, laying the foundation for a future where the kingdom would play a more active role in European affairs. In the court, Anastasia became a symbol of grace and intellect, hosting salons where thinkers and artists gathered to discuss matters of theology, philosophy, and politics. These gatherings not only helped to raise the cultural profile of Hungary but also helped Anastasia strengthen her position as a queen who was deeply involved in shaping Hungary's future. Her intelligence, political skill, and patronage of the arts earned her the respect of the court and the admiration of Hungary's most prominent figures. Religious unity and religious tensions. Throughout this period of stability, Hungary remained a kingdom deeply divided by religious tensions. The religious rift between Catholicism and Eastern Orthodoxy was never far from the surface. while András I, as king, adhered to the Catholic faith and worked to strengthen Hungary's ties with the Papal States. Anastasia remained loyal to her Eastern Orthodox roots. In her role as queen, Anastasia became a symbol of the connection between Hungary and the Byzantine Empire. Though her influence was primarily political, she also played a crucial role in preserving Hungary's ties to the Eastern Orthodox Church. While András worked to strengthen Catholicism within Hungary, Anastasia's diplomatic efforts helped maintain a measure of respect and understanding between the Catholic and Orthodox factions within Hungary. Her efforts in this regard were critical. Hungary was a kingdom at the crossroads of two religious worlds, and Anastasia's ability to manage these tensions without alienating either side helped ensure Hungary's long-term stability. By maintaining diplomatic relations with the Byzantine Empire, Anastasia ensured that Hungary would continue to benefit from its connections to the Eastern Orthodox world. At the same time, her efforts to support András's Catholic policies ensured that Hungary remained firmly in the Western Christian fold. Though tensions occasionally flared, especially as Hungary grew closer to the Papal States, Anastasia's presence in the court helped to mitigate the potential for religious strife. Her ability to navigate the complexities of both religious spheres made her an indispensable advisor to her husband, as well as a respected figure in Hungary's political and religious life. The prosperity of Hungary under András I. By the mid-1050s, Hungary had undergone a dramatic transformation. The kingdom was stronger than ever before, its borders secure, its economy flourishing, and its culture thriving. András I's reign had secured Hungary's place as a powerful and independent kingdom in Europe, and Anastasia's diplomatic efforts were crucial to that success. Her role in shaping Hungary's foreign policy, ensuring the kingdom's political and religious stability, and promoting its cultural growth made her one of the most influential queens in medieval Europe. Under András's leadership and with Anastasia's guidance, Hungary had become a kingdom that was both prosperous and respected in the eyes of its neighbors. The political and military victories of the early years of András's reign had laid the groundwork for Hungary's future, while the cultural and intellectual flourishing of the mid-11th century ensured that Hungary would play an important role in European affairs for years to come. Yet, despite their success, the challenges were far from over. Hungary's position in Europe was precarious, with powerful neighbors like the Holy Roman Empire and Byzantine Empire constantly shifting allegiances. But for now, Hungary enjoyed a period of relative peace and prosperity, one that would lay the foundation for the kingdom's future as a major player on the European stage. As the years progressed, the early successes of András I's reign began to face growing internal and external challenges. The peace and prosperity that Hungary had enjoyed were, like all periods of stability in history, fragile. Political, religious, and external forces converged to test the strength of the kingdom András and Anastasia had worked so tirelessly to build. Though Hungary had flourished under their leadership, the foundations of the kingdom were beginning to show signs of strain. And the couple's ability to manage both internal dissent and external pressure was about to be put to the ultimate test. The waning power of András I. By the late 1050s, András I was no longer the vibrant, energetic king who had secured Hungary's borders and fostered its cultural renaissance. As his reign progressed, his health began to decline, and his capacity to govern diminished. The physical toll of the years of struggle and warfare, combined with the burden of ruling a kingdom that was still in the midst of consolidating its power, began to weigh heavily on the king. Anastasia, ever the astute observer and dedicated partner, recognized the growing vulnerability of her husband, though she had always been a trusted advisor. The weakening of András I's health forced her to take on an even larger role in the day-to-day affairs of the kingdom. Despite her own personal grief at seeing her husband's health falter, Anastasia was resolute in her duty. She knew that the stability of Hungary depended on her actions, and she could not afford to be passive at this critical moment. In the face of András I's declining health, Anastasia assumed a more prominent role within the court. She took on greater responsibility for the kingdom's political and diplomatic affairs, ensuring that Hungary's external alliances remained intact and that internal divisions were kept in check. Her efforts to stabilize the kingdom in the wake of her husband's deteriorating health were crucial. But they also exposed the fragile nature of Hungary's unity. It became clear that Hungary's success had been built on the strong partnership between András and Anastasia. And now the kingdom would have to endure the test of continuity without their combined strength. The rise of factions. As András I's health continued to decline, the political landscape of Hungary became increasingly turbulent. The Hungarian nobility, long accustomed to political instability, began to fracture into competing factions, each vying for influence as the question of succession loomed large. The absence of a clear successor to the throne only heightened the anxiety within the court. Anastasia, who had navigated Hungary's political intricacies for years, knew that these factional divisions posed a grave threat to the kingdom's stability. Some factions sought to elevate András's sons to the throne, while others looked to more distant relatives or powerful noble families. The absence of András's strong leadership created a vacuum, and the ambitious nobles within Hungary sought to fill it with their own vision of the kingdom's future. Anastasia, ever the strategist, worked tirelessly to maintain unity among the factions, even as she maneuvered to secure her own position and the future of her children. Her influence within the court grew, but so did the resentment of those who saw her as a foreign queen. Still loyal to the Eastern Orthodox Church and not fully integrated into the fabric of Hungary's Catholic identity. Though Hungary had prospered under her leadership, her connection to the Byzantine Empire and her strong ties to the Orthodox faith made her a polarizing figure for many within the kingdom's political elite. The factions that had been a minor irritant in the early years of András's reign now became a destabilizing force. Political rivalries and competing loyalties began to tear at the fabric of Hungary's unity. The nobles who had once supported András, now disillusioned by his physical decline and the absence of a clear succession plan, began to align themselves with different factions, each seeking to secure their own power. External threats to Hungary's sovereignty. While Hungary's internal politics began to unravel, external threats to the kingdom also mounted. The Byzantine Empire, which had once been a source of diplomatic support through Anastasia's influence, now seemed like a distant and uncertain ally. The empire, in the midst of its own decline, was no longer the powerful force it had once been, but its presence in the eastern Mediterranean still held sway over the political dynamics of Eastern Europe. To the west, the Holy Roman Empire was growing stronger under the rule of Emperor Henry III, whose imperial ambitions threatened Hungary's position as an independent kingdom. While Hungary had aligned itself with the Holy Roman Empire during András I's reign, the relationship between the two kingdoms was never one of absolute trust. The looming possibility of a stronger Western Europe had begun to reshape Hungary's foreign policy priorities. Hungary found itself squeezed between the declining Byzantine Empire and the growing influence of the Holy Roman Empire, with neither side offering the same level of stability and support that Hungary had enjoyed during András's more active years. The political fragmentation within Hungary, combined with the uncertain external alliances, left the kingdom vulnerable to pressure from its neighbors. At a time when Hungary needed strong leadership, it found itself embroiled in a period of uncertainty, with foreign powers seeking to exploit the kingdom's internal strife, the Byzantine threat and the declining influence of Anastasia. While Anastasia's diplomatic skills had once been a key asset in maintaining Hungary's relations with the East, the changing tides in the Byzantine Empire began to undermine her influence. The weakening of the Byzantine Empire, which had once provided Hungary with valuable diplomatic support, left Anastasia in a precarious position. The influence of the Orthodox Church in Hungary waned, and with it, her political leverage. The Byzantine Empire was embroiled in its own internal struggles, and its inability to provide Hungary with the support it had once enjoyed was becoming evident. As Anastasia's political power began to wane, so did her ability to keep Hungary's ties to the East intact. Hungary, which had once been able to maintain a delicate balance between the East and West, now faced increasing pressure from both the Holy Roman Empire and a fading Byzantine Empire. Anastasia's position became increasingly tenuous, though she had been a central figure in Hungary's political life for years. Her influence began to fade as the factions within Hungary grew stronger and as the external political climate shifted. Her status as queen consort, though still respected, became a source of tension. The political establishment, wary of foreign influence, saw her ties to the Eastern Orthodox Church as a point of contention. And her position within the court was no longer as secure as it had once been. The legacy of András I. Despite the challenges facing Hungary, András I's legacy remained. Under his leadership, Hungary had grown into a more powerful, unified kingdom, and his military successes had secured the kingdom's borders. He had transformed Hungary from a fragmented and unstable kingdom into a strong, independent state. However, as the years passed and his health declined, it became clear that the future of Hungary would depend not just on the legacy of András I, but on the ability of his successors, particularly Anastasia and her children, to navigate the complexities of Hungary's political landscape. András's death, which loomed ever closer, would mark the end of an era for Hungary. The question of succession remained unresolved, and the kingdom faced its most significant test yet. The internal divisions and external threats that had been simmering beneath the surface would soon come to a head. And Hungary's future remained uncertain. As the situation became more dire, Anastasia's influence as a political figure continued to be tested. Would she be able to guide Hungary through this crisis? Or would the political and religious divisions within the kingdom prove insurmountable? The inevitable end of András I's reign arrived quietly. Much like the slow decline of the man who had once fought fiercely for Hungary's independence. As his health deteriorated further, the weight of the kingdom fell heavily on his wife, Anastasia, who had stood by him through decades of political and military struggles. The once strong king who had led Hungary through years of turmoil was now a shadow of his former self. Though the kingdom had flourished under their joint efforts, the future of Hungary now seemed uncertain, hanging on the balance between her legacy, the strength of the nobility, and the ambitions of the younger generation. The final days of András I. András I's final days were spent in relative quiet, as his health had declined to the point where he could no longer actively govern. His earlier vigor had been sapped by years of internal strife, military campaigns, and the constant political pressure. Anastasia, ever the dutiful wife, remained by his side, providing counsel and stability as best as she could. Yet the weight of the kingdom's problems was now entirely upon her shoulders. Though András had been a strong and capable ruler, he had left no clear plan for succession. The question of who would follow him to the throne was becoming increasingly urgent. His sons, while capable, were still young and had not yet proven themselves in matters of governance or military leadership. The nobility, many of whom had supported András's claim to the throne but had also opposed his rule at various points, were divided. The Catholic Church was growing more powerful, and Eastern Orthodoxy, represented by Anastasia's background, had lost much of its influence within Hungary. Anastasia's role in these final days was not just that of a wife and consort, but a stabilizing force, trying to manage a delicate balance between the factions of Hungary's nobility, religious tensions, and the fading influence of her Eastern Orthodox ties. András's death would leave a void not only in the throne but in the very fabric of Hungary's unity. The burden of succession. As András I's condition worsened, the question of who would ascend the throne became an increasingly pressing issue. The kingdom was ripe for division, and the factions that had once been held at bay by András's strong rule now began to assert themselves. The Hungarian nobility, ever eager to secure their power and land, began to jockey for influence. Some saw András's eldest son, Solomon, as the rightful heir, while others thought more favorably of Bela, another of András's sons, who had grown up outside of Hungary's political sphere and was seen as an outsider to the intrigues of the Hungarian court. There were also those within the court who sought to place a cousin or distant relative of the royal line on the throne, knowing that the young heirs lacked the authority and support that their father had commanded. Anastasia, despite her noble background and the influence she had exercised during her husband's reign, found herself at the center of a political storm. As a woman, she had never had the formal power to claim the throne for herself. But her counsel was sought after by those who knew her political skill, especially in navigating the delicate political landscape between East and West. While the Hungarian nobility saw her as a foreign queen with connections to the Byzantine Empire and the Eastern Orthodox Church, they also recognized her invaluable experience and diplomatic abilities. Yet, the divisions within Hungary, between the nobility, between the Catholic and Orthodox factions, and between the various branches of the royal family, were threatening to tear the kingdom apart. Anastasia knew that her decisions in the coming days would determine not just the future of her family but the very survival of Hungary as an independent and unified kingdom. The death of András I. András I died in the year 1060. And with his death came the inevitable uncertainty of the kingdom's future. Anastasia, despite her personal grief, acted swiftly. She immediately gathered the nobility, the clergy, and her family to discuss the question of succession. She knew that the immediate future of Hungary lay in the hands of the nobles and that the kingdom's stability depended on a quick decision. The power vacuum that followed András's death did not lead to a swift resolution. The nobility, torn between supporting Solomon or Bela, failed to come to a quick agreement. As a result, the kingdom descended into a state of political uncertainty. Factions within the court began to vie for influence, and Hungary's future seemed increasingly precarious. Anastasia, though grieving, was forced to take charge, not just as a queen consort but as a political force in her own right. Anastasia worked tirelessly to ensure that Hungary's succession would not lead to civil war. Her political experience, honed in the courts of Kiev and her marriage to András I, made her an invaluable advisor to her sons and the court. It was clear that the path to the throne was not going to be an easy one, and she would have to work to ensure that the young king, Solomon, would be able to maintain the authority of the crown. Anastasia's role in the struggle for the throne. In the immediate aftermath of András's death, Anastasia became the central figure in the kingdom's political struggles. The factions that had supported András now looked to her for guidance. But her position was tenuous. She had to navigate between the demands of the Catholic Church and the Orthodox factions, between the Hungarian nobility and her own family's interests. Anastasia's main concern was securing Hungary's independence, ensuring that the kingdom did not fall under the control of foreign powers. Whether it be the Holy Roman Empire, the Byzantine Empire, or even the growing influence of the Papal States, she worked tirelessly to maintain the delicate balance between the Catholic and Orthodox spheres, trying to secure support for her son Solomon without alienating powerful factions within the court. Her diplomatic efforts, though focused on securing Hungary's future, were also aimed at ensuring that her children's interests were protected. As a mother and queen consort, Anastasia knew that Hungary's survival depended not just on political alliances but on maintaining the unity of the royal family. The succession struggle threatened to tear the family apart, and Anastasia's position became one of quiet yet unyielding resolve. Anastasia's legacy, despite the tensions that surrounded her during the years after András's death. Anastasia's influence on Hungary was undeniable. Her work in securing the throne for her son, her diplomatic efforts to maintain Hungary's independence, and her ability to navigate the complex relationships within the kingdom set the stage for Hungary's future as a stable European power. Her legacy as queen consort was one of strength, wisdom, and diplomatic skill. Though she had faced immense challenges in maintaining Hungary's stability, her efforts ensured that Hungary would continue as an independent and powerful kingdom. She played an indispensable role in shaping Hungary's political future and securing her family's place in the annals of history. As the years passed, Hungary would enter a new era, one marked by the legacy of András I and Anastasia, whose combined efforts had ensured the survival and growth of Hungary, though the immediate future of Hungary would remain uncertain for some time. The foundations that András and Anastasia had built would serve as the bedrock for the kingdom's continued success. Anastasia, though having lost her husband, left behind a kingdom that was stronger, more united, and better positioned to navigate the challenges of the medieval European landscape. Her strength, political wisdom, and unwavering loyalty to her family ensured that the kingdom remained on a path toward greatness. Her legacy, intertwined with András's, would resonate throughout Hungary's history, a testament to the enduring power of love, loyalty, and diplomacy. The death of András I marked the end of an era for both Hungary and Anastasia. The political struggles that followed his passing were not easily overcome, and the kingdom, though stable under András's leadership, now faced a future filled with uncertainty. As Hungary grappled with its internal divisions and external threats, Anastasia remained at the heart of the kingdom's political life. Though the future of her children and Hungary was uncertain, her legacy as a queen consort and diplomat would leave an indelible mark on the history of the kingdom. The quiet leadership of Anastasia. In the aftermath of András's death, Anastasia, though now a widow, remained the most influential figure in Hungary's court, though the kingdom was now in the hands of her son Solomon, who ascended to the throne after András. It was clear that Hungary was still at a crossroads. Solomon was young and inexperienced, and the tensions within the Hungarian court, still divided between the Catholic and Orthodox factions, meant that his reign was not immediately accepted by all. For Anastasia, the transition from a queen consort to a political figure in her own right was both a personal challenge and an opportunity. As Solomon's reign began, she acted as both mother and advisor, carefully guiding him through the turbulent waters of Hungarian politics. She understood that Solomon's success on the throne would depend largely on his ability to unite the country and consolidate his power, something that could only be achieved through deft diplomacy and careful management of the nobility. The political atmosphere within the court was tense, with many factions still loyal to the memory of András I and others seeking to exploit the kingdom's political instability. Anastasia, though still loyal to Hungary and committed to her son's future, found herself increasingly isolated in her role as the queen consort. Her Eastern Orthodox background, though a valuable diplomatic tool in her earlier years, was now seen as a complicating factor in Hungary's predominantly Catholic court. The growing influence of the Catholic Church within Hungary, combined with the political ambitions of the nobility, made Anastasia's position increasingly difficult. Despite these challenges, Anastasia's influence remained significant. Her political acumen and diplomatic skills were respected, and her connections to the Byzantine Empire allowed her to continue to play a key role in Hungary's foreign relations. Her ability to balance the interests of Hungary's Catholic factions and the Orthodox world was still valuable, and she continued to act as a mediator between the two. The role of Anastasia in Hungary's future. Though Hungary was experiencing its own internal struggles, the political landscape of Europe was changing. The Holy Roman Empire, under Emperor Henry III, was growing in power, and the Byzantine Empire was slowly receding. For Anastasia, these shifting powers presented both opportunities and challenges. She worked to ensure that Hungary maintained its independence, not only from the influence of the Byzantine Empire but also from the growing influence of the Holy Roman Empire. Anastasia's legacy, however, was not solely defined by her political and diplomatic achievements. Her devotion to her family and her kingdom was evident in the way she guided her son, Solomon, through the difficult early years of his reign. Though Hungary's future was uncertain and the question of her son's reign remained unresolved, Anastasia's steadfastness in the face of adversity was a testament to her strength as a mother, queen, and political figure. Anastasia's later years. In the years that followed András I's death, Anastasia's role in Hungary's court became less prominent, though she continued to serve as an advisor to her son, as Solomon faced mounting pressure from both internal factions and external threats. Anastasia's diplomatic efforts remained crucial in preserving Hungary's sovereignty. Her influence was especially important in maintaining Hungary's relationships with the Byzantine Empire and neighboring Poland. Her ability to navigate the delicate balance between the Eastern and Western powers ensured that Hungary was not overly dependent on any single foreign influence. Despite the challenges, Anastasia's legacy as a queen consort was deeply felt. She had been a queen who was not just a wife but a political partner, a trusted advisor, and a stabilizing force in Hungary's turbulent years. As Hungary's political structure shifted, Anastasia's role evolved, but her influence never fully waned. She remained a respected figure in the kingdom, someone whose wisdom and diplomatic experience were sought after by the court. Even as Hungary navigated the complexities of succession and external threats, the passing of Anastasia. As the years passed, Anastasia's life began to fade into the background of Hungary's history. While Hungary's political struggles continued, and the kingdom faced new challenges, Anastasia's time as the central political figure was now over. Yet her legacy remained intertwined with Hungary's future. She had helped to shape the kingdom's course, guided Hungary through some of its most turbulent periods, and helped establish its place in the larger European political landscape. Anastasia's death, whenever it came, was marked by the quiet passing of a woman who had been at the heart of Hungary's political life for so long. Though she was no longer actively involved in the affairs of the kingdom, her legacy lived on through her children and the choices she had made. Her son, Solomon, though facing challenges in his reign, would eventually carry on Hungary's legacy of independence, and the kingdom would continue to grow and evolve. Her legacy was also carried forward by the generations that followed. Anastasia had ensured that Hungary remained a sovereign kingdom, and her efforts had helped lay the groundwork for future kings to rise above the challenges of the medieval world. Hungary would continue to play a key role in European politics, and the influence of Anastasia's diplomacy, her ability to manage Hungary's complex political structure, and her legacy as a queen consort would echo through the annals of history. The enduring legacy of Anastasia. In the end, Anastasia's legacy was not defined by the length of her reign or by her immediate influence on the throne. It was defined by her ability to navigate the challenges of medieval politics, to manage Hungary's relationships with its neighbors, and to ensure that the kingdom survived through its darkest moments. Her marriage to András I had been a union of political necessity. But over time it had evolved into a partnership built on trust, respect, and a shared vision for Hungary's future. Anastasia's legacy was also one of resilience. She had lived through times of conflict, division, and uncertainty, and yet she had always managed to find a way forward. She had been a queen who understood the importance of diplomacy and compromise, and who had been willing to sacrifice her personal desires for the good of the kingdom. Her legacy was one of quiet strength, a reminder that the role of a queen consort, while often overshadowed by the king's rule, could be just as powerful in shaping the course of history. As Hungary continued its journey through the Middle Ages, the echoes of Anastasia's reign, her diplomacy, and her quiet strength would remain. She had helped build a kingdom, protect its future, and ensure that it would stand as a testament to the enduring power of love, loyalty, and diplomacy. In the annals of Hungary's history, Anastasia of Kiev would always be remembered as a queen who, despite the challenges of her time, left an indelible mark on the kingdom's legacy.